Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to be breaking down the excellent fight between Alex Pereira and Khalil Rountree at UFC 307 in Utah. First of all, before I do the breakdown, I want to give a massive props to both Pereira and Rountree for saving the card on paper. This card didn't really have a solid main event, and it was pretty unsure. It was meant to be Topuria versus Holloway, but then they pushed it back to Abu Dhabi because Makachev was injured. Then it was meant to be Shavkat versus Bilal. Bilal, had a few injuries. There just wasn't really any answer to the main event. So Alex Pereira and Khalil Rountree stepped up on, fairly short notice. Alex Pereira was injured going to the fight. He said, injury to his rib. He had the flu. He was on antibiotics. You could actually hear him coughing in his corner. And Khalil Rountree very clearly had some damage on his nose going into the fight. So massive props to them. And they put on an actually good fight. Because if I'm being honest, the rest of this pay-per-view was kind of terrible. It really wasn't good. And especially the main card was super underwhelming, There was the fight with Kayla Harrison, which, it wasn't as dominant as you expect, but it wasn't competitive enough. Then Holland versus Deledze ended in an injury after the first round. Then Mario Batista versus Jose Aldo never happened. That was a robbery, though, if it did. Then Pena versus Pennington, arguably a robbery. I don't really care, though. So they really did save the card. So props to Khalil Rountree, first of all, for, putting a competitive fight to one of the most terrifying champions in UFC history. And, taking a few rounds off of him and then taking that absolute beating in the fourth round. Keep in mind, this is massive volume. Not from a fighter like Max Holloway or like a volume puncher. This is Alex Pereira, right? Nicknamed Poetan, Stonehands. He's getting kettlebells swung at him over and over and over, and he would have taken about 30, 40 shots just in that fourth round, and it was only until he got hit to the body did he really go down. So massive props to Khalil. I really do hope that UFC pay him well specifically for that. I really do hope he takes the time off that he needs. But just massive props. He's earned a lot of fans tonight. So now let's get into the breakdown. Pereira immediately starts going for a rear front kick to the body. This is because Khalil keeps himself fairly square. Khalil then shows what part of his game plan is to counter Pereira's kicks by blitzing in. Natural sequence, someone's on one leg, it's a bit easy to blitz him, but he was having some success as well, just blitzing with left hands and catching Pereira off guard just simply with his speed. Pereira did do a good job at rolling with the shots and slightly leaning back with him, though, I will say. Khalil actually found quite a lot of success in combination when he blitzed. If he doubled up on the right hand here and then was able to land the left hand as Pereira was backing up in a straight line, which he actually does do quite a bit. Here we see Pereira begin to commit to the outside calf kick, which against a very explosive opponent, it could get him caught in some earlier exchanges. As you see, Khalil splits up to them, but as they start to add up, it becomes much harder to explode, and you see this as the fight goes on. While Pereira did find quite a lot of success in this fight with his jab and his calf kick, he actually really struggled to land some of his more consistent weapons. Like his jab to the body, he wasn't landing too well because when Khalil's so short and he's so stocky, you have to reach down so far to actually jab him. And also Pereira was going for a head kick a lot, arguably because it's Salt Lake City, head kick, naturally is the next option. But he struggled to find the head kick as Khalil was blocking it or was straight up just going over his head. Here we see Pereira, even though he has the inside foot, he's able to almost lean back on one of Khalil's jabs and land a nice clean right hand down the center, as Khalil, one, stands very square, and two, he tends to put up just a high guard which leaves openings down the middle. Here we have Pereira going back to the calf kick. He's having quite a bit of a success with it, but here we see him start to find a home for his jab. Now, since it's southpaw versus orthodox, it's a bit harder for the jab to land. So Pereira almost kind of aims outside of Khalil's right hand rather than through the center, and he actually has quite a bit more success with it because it's not like a left hook. It's not as arcing. It covers a lot more distance, but it still has a little bit of angle on it. He's able to get more power in there. And here we have a couple of exchanges where Khalil has success blitzing in with his right hook, similar to that we saw with Anthony Smith. As Pereira, he's a very left-handed fighter, and he does tend to keep his hands low, so at times where Pereira jabs or left hooks, and if he misses by just a bit, Khalil had success blitzing with the right hand. But as the first round ends, we see that all this blitzing does take a toll on him, and keep in mind this is in Utah, it's at elevation, it's notorious for gassing, even well cardioed fighters are gassing them out. But despite that, Khalil still remained in the fight. Beginning of round 2, Pereira immediately goes back to the calf kick, but the thing with the outside calf kick is it's a lot easier to sort of cover distance inwards. Like if you're countering, if you eat an outside kick, it's a lot easier to blitz in. So Pereira lands the calf kick, and Khalil is able to line up a nice 1-2 on Pereira. Once again, Pereira tries the head kick. Khalil's actually able to catch it, and as he scoops it around, he throws the right hook. The motion of scooping the kick around tends to load up the right hook, and it's just a very good way to chain defense and offense together. Pereira really had his most success in this fight when he mixed up his targets. Instead of going for the highlight real KO with his left hook or a head kick, he had so much success with the jab or the front kick to the body or the outside calf kick, just slowly breaking Khalil down. And here we see another front kick to the body land very well. Pereira again throws the rear head kick, but Khalil, instead of catching it this time, he actually decides to duck under it. This causes Pereira to spin around. As you're putting a lot of power into the kick, you spin around, you completely do a 360. Pereira turns, and his eyes are not on Khalil at all. Khalil's able to land a nice right hook, sort of around Pereira's back, and Pereira doesn't see the punches coming, and he sits in his chair and he takes a knee, and again Khalil becomes the first man to knock down Pereira at 205. Very impressive. Now Pereira wasn't super rocked or hurt, he was just caught off balance by a really good punch and still a knockdown by Khalil, so kudos to him. And at the end of the second round, Khalil fakes the left hand. Pereira dips really, really heavy to his own right. Khalil was actually loading up a massive head kick, which Pereira just eats straight to the chin. And by some miracle, he does not even get wobbled, but still really impressive by Khalil. Now, as the third round starts, Khalil is able to continue some of the success he had. He slips on the inside of Pereira's jab, is able to land a nice left hand as Pereira is way too close to Khalil. Khalil also then lands a nice rear body kick on Pereira, which actually gets Pereira to back up into the fence, and it gets a very unusual reaction. The commentary even took note of this. This is most likely due to Pereira's rib injury. While it's not confirmed what side it was on, you can assume, right? So that was still impressive by Khalil though. But Pereira begins to start finding a home for his right hand. He fakes the left hand and is able to land a right straight down the center as Khalil is circling the other way. In another exchange, he throws the lead head kick this time instead of the rear one, so he's less off balance. He throws the lead head kick, and as Khalil's trying to cover distance afterwards, as he's shown to do throughout the fight, Pereira is able to land a nice jab. Pereira starts to get much more comfortable exchanging with Khalil as, due to fatigue and the leg kicks. Khalil's explosions aren't as notable, and his ability to defend isn't as good, so Pereira starts popping the jab, and this isn't just a normal jab, it's a jab from Alex Pereira, so obviously it does a bit more damage, and straight to the eye. Pereira amps up the rate at which he's throwing his calf kick, because again, he's having more success with it. Now that Khalil's leg is hurting, he's starting to move around a lot less, and there's less risk of him blitzing in, so the kick becomes easier to land the more you land it. And this causes Khalil to actually stand a lot more upright. Now this, while good for defending kicks and it puts less weight on your leg, it's way harder to explode because you have to get low, you have to get a lot of drive in your legs, and Khalil simply can't have that if he's standing so upright. And with the leg kicks, it actually becomes a lot more difficult to move your head if your legs are compromised, because to move your head, you actually need to plant yourself pretty hard. That's why Muay Thai guys typically don't have a whole lot of head movement outside of the lean backs. And if you look, when fighters lean back, they actually widen their stance quite a bit. So essentially this allowed Pereira to get his punches up a lot more, and here we see a nice jab land from Pereira. As the fight goes on, Khalil's taking, damage to the face, body and legs. It's elevation. This is in the third round. Khalil typically tends to gas around now. His kicks become a lot more slower and laboured, and so does his punches. This will eventually give a lot more openings for Pereira. And as Pereira sees that Khalil is beginning to gas out, he begins to start to crowd him. Right, he starts to amp up with the volume, and he just quite literally standing toe to toe with him. And having someone like Alex Pereira in front of you, even at a distance, is terrifying. So having him right in front of you, you're going to be constantly backing up. You're going to feel crowded. You're almost going to be drowning in pressure, and that obviously takes more away from your gas tank, makes you hesitant to throw. And Pereira is able to land more jabs with more power. Now, as Khalil is backing up to the fence now, Pereira notices this and actually lands a nice skip knee up the middle, right on Khalil's nose through the guard. After this, Khalil's body language is starting to show that he's hurt, and then he's slowly withering away. And when Pereira sees that you're hurt and you're showing some signs of damage, he really is really good at swarming you, and especially now that he has confidence in his chin, he will put defense on the back burner, and he starts, peppering more jabs, still being cautious, but just landing hard, solid jabs, and eventually starts to pick up on the timing of Khalil's left hand. And in one exchange, he lands a right hand, Khalil counters with his left, Pereira slips, gets a profile view, and lands another great right hand on Khalil. Extremely impressive counter work from Pereira. As the fourth round begins, Pereira immediately, goes back to the good game plan of jabbing and calf kicking. And even shows that he has Khalil's timing because he lands a right hand and then slips out of the way of the counter. Now, Khalil actually does begin to have quite a bit of success with the kicks, but Pereira is timing the jab so well that just as Khalil is about to kick, he's loading up to kick, he'll land the jab. And if you've ever sparred before, you'd know if you get hit right as you're about to throw a punch or a kick or any form of strike, it hurts quite a bit more, and it sort of makes you tired. So he's getting very good at this. And Pereira lands a really nice jab here. There's nothing special about this jab. It's the same jab he's been landing throughout the entire fight. But Khalil also tries throwing a kick as this jab lands. And like I explained before, that makes the impact a lot bigger. Khalil, who's taken shots pretty well this entire fight, now starts taking a back step. He has a bit of a wobble, and Pereira immediately follows. He starts going jabs. He keeps calm. He starts slipping out of the way of Khalil's counters, landing right hands, landing uppercuts and left hooks. He just begins chaining together strikes and expertly moving his head out of the way. He begins just brutalizing Khalil, slipping out of the way, right hand, left hook, going in for knees at times, just in the Matrix almost, and it's extremely impressive. And Khalil takes about 40 of these massive strikes, and it's insanely impressive. But it's when Pereira finally digs with the two body shots, the right hook and the left hook to the body, followed by an uppercut. When those body shots landed, I swear I nearly, felt my lunch come up, and it was insane. And finally, Khalil goes down, the ref steps in. Could have stepped in earlier, but to be fair, Khalil was throwing back, and he was throwing back hard, so, all respect to him. But insanely impressive by Pereira. Saved the card again, and what's really funny? Because Khalil had success in this fight, you know what Ankalaev and every other light heavyweight's thinking? Oh, I can beat Pereira on the feet. I don't need to grapple with him. So naturally, Pereira versus Ankalaev, or if Ankalaev beats Rakic, that fight would be next. And I do think Pereira would win. So I'm really looking forward to that. But props to Khalil, props to Pereira. Excellent fight, tough as nails. So hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown, and that's all.